Changing the subject to the formula. Today's objective is I will be able to change the subject of the formula when the subject appears more than once. So let's just get straight on with an example and we'll look at what changes as we go. Okay, our first example then. Make X the subject of the formula. So when we say it appears more than once, we can see here that we have an X here and an X here. So what we need to do, first of all, is get the X on the same side. Now when I say X, it's whatever the subject is. Okay, so I'm going to take this X over there to join the other one. So I get NX minus X, still got the P there, equals K. Then we need to get everything else away from the X's. So here I've got a plus P that needs to get out of the way and join the K over there. So I'm left with NX minus X equals K minus P. Okay, so now we need to think about what could we do to get the X on its own, because currently this is NX and this is X. Now what we do, we need to draw out the X, and we do that by factorising. So X is in both of these. What would you times X by to get NX? N. What would you times X by to get X? 1. Okay, so we need to factorise. Okay, once we've factorised, this is like any of the other questions we've done. To get X on its own, we need to get rid of the N minus 1. The opposite of timesing by N minus 1 is to divide by N minus 1. And you're done, you've got X on its own. Okay, let's look at another one. So we've got M minus NX equals P add X. So because this is a minus X or minus NX, it's going to be easy if we take it over here and group the X's over this side. Yeah, we'd rather deal with positives than negatives. So if I take this over here, I've got P add X and it becomes plus NX. And left on this side is just the M. Okay, then we need to move everything away from the X's. The little p goes over here and becomes minus p. So now we've got all the X's on one side. We need to factorise to draw them out. So there we go. So X times 1 makes X. X times N would make NX. And we've got the N minus P over here. And to get X on its own, we need to move the 1 add N. So we take it over here and divide. Now X is on its own. Okay, so I've got two for you to have a go at. Press pause, have a go, and we'll go through them. Okay, so first thing we need to do is get the X's all on one side. So I'm going to bring this one over here. So I've got AX minus X, add C equals B. Then we need to move everything else away from the X's. So plus C goes over there and becomes minus C. Now we've got all the X's on one side. We need to draw them out by factorising. So I would times X by A to get AX and 1 to get X. Now we've factorised, we need to get rid of the times by A minus 1. So it goes to the other side and becomes divide by A minus 1. And you are done. Next one then, we've got a negative X here, so we're going to group them all on this side so they're positive. So that comes over here and becomes plus AX. And you've got the C. B is left on that side. Move everything away from the X's. So I get B minus C equals X add AX. Now we've got all our X's on one side. We need to draw it out, so we factorise. and b minus c is left over there. And then to get rid of a times by that, we divide by it. And you are done. Okay, so I've got some questions for you to practice now. Press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through them. Okay, hopefully you got all of those correct. Let's look at our next example. Okay, here's our next example. Make x is subject to the formula. We've got ax add b divided by x equals t. Okay, so we need to get rid of the divide because we want them all in a line. So if x comes up, it becomes times by x, so I get ax add b equals xt. Then we need to get all the x's on one side. So let's take that over here. So I get ax minus xt add b equals nothing. You've got nothing left on that side. And then we take the b over there. So I get ax minus xt equals minus b. So now we've got all the x's on one side. We need to draw them out by factorising. So I get x a minus t equals minus b, and then to get rid of the times by at, we divide by a minus t. Okay, let's look at another example. So this time it's not just an x at the bottom, we've got x add d. Doesn't matter, we bring the whole lot up. Okay, so I get ax add b equals n bracket x add d. Okay, now the difference here is in order to deal with this x, we need to expand this bracket. Okay, so I've got ax add b over this side, and I would get nx add dn over here. Okay, now we can move all the x's to one side, so I'm going to bring this one over here. Becomes minus nx, and then I'm left with dn over here, and b comes over to become minus b. Once all the x's are on one side, you need to draw them out by factorising. Okay, and then to get x on its own, we need to divide by a minus n. Okay, so I've got two questions for you to do there. Press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through them. Okay, so we're going to bring the x up and times by it. So I get x add b equals xt. Then I need to get all the x's on one side. This comes over here. So I get x minus xt add b equals 0. Take the b out the way. So we're left with the x's on one side. And then we need to factorise to draw out the x. And then to get x on its own, we need to divide by 1 minus t. Okay, and our next one here, we need to move this up. So I get ax add e equals g lots of x add f. In order to get to that x, we need to expand the bracket. Okay, now you can get all the x's on one side. This comes over here. Take the e out of the way. Okay, now the x's are on one side, you need to factorise to get x on its own. Okay, and now to get x on its own, we divide this side by a minus g. Okay, so I've got some questions for you to practice now. Press pause, have a go, and we'll go through them. Okay, hopefully you got those correct. Okay, so now I have some mixed questions that draw on all the skills that we've learnt when changing the subject to the formula. So just remember, you do everything in reverse to try and get the subject on its own. Press pause, have a go, and then we'll go through them. Okay, hopefully you got all of those correct. There's some tricky questions there. So what I need you to do now is complete your exit pass and send it to your class teacher.